Okay, cool. Alright, let's try that now. Here we go. Alright, we are...
Alright, there we are. Look a
That's
little
us,
shady,
yeah.
but that's okay.
We're very backlit right now, but you know what?
That's
It'll
the
work.
way it goes. That way our best sides will be showing.
Stegosaurus.
I might lower the camera a little
25
bit too, 'cause
feet
it's got a lot
long,
of blue
weighing
sky in
4
it.
tons.
But great, we are live. Welcome
He won a
everybody
lot
to
of arguments in his
Paleontologizing. It's so
time,
good to have you
but
here
very
today. Thanks
few
for joining
beauty
us.
contests.
I'm here with Don DiBlieux from the Utah Geological Survey. He's been my crew chief for the past 3
Let's
weeks.
protect our fossils.
We've just been kind of wrapping things up
if
today.
they're removed,
and,
America
yeah, it's
loses
been pretty good. Good season,
forever.
you'd say so far?
Yeah. Do you want to mess with the camera? Or
Sure, yeah, let me lower it
All
just
right,
a little bit.
a little too much blue sky.
I'll tell you another way. About 250 a million years ago, this great big gruesome creature began to grow and grow.
Have a water on me.
This is a herbivore and that's the dinosaur man.
Dinosaur man.
With sincere appreciation and gratitude, thank you very much for the 100 bits.
Doc_Apocalypse is getting serious with those 5 gift subs.
Extinction is the motor of substantial change
10
in
years.
evolution. If
Shoot.
extinction
And
didn't occur,
usually,
a successful group would
for
dominate
3,
and
4,
would
5,
last
6
forever.
weeks at a time out here, and then other things. So Jim and I have probably camped out in places similar to this for, I don't know, at least 2+ years, close to 3 years together, 24 hours a day.
Nice.
Luckily, we
nice.
set up our tents very far apart. So.
2 or 3 years combined, like with
Combined,
no,
yeah. With not,
of like
yeah, we've been working together
stopwatch.
for
Yeah.
21 years, but times that we've actually been out in the field together is probably approaching the 3-year mark. So
That's really impressive.
we've
Yeah,
known,
that's
known each other for quite a while. And I mean, we love it, obviously. And he's a great guy, and he's one of my best friends. But
Yeah.
you know how it is, your best friends, you want to get him most of the time.
oh yeah, yeah.
No, he's wonderful. And
Optic and milli, optic and
I'm
milli,
very
optic and
appreciative,
milli,
too, of
optic
all
and
the
milli,
hard work
optic
that
and milli, optic and milli.
the crews do. So
Yeah.
and then if I could remember a tenth of what he's told me, I would be. They would just give me an honorary PhD. I would
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's fun. But we've been traveling around so many places in Utah that I kind of know what he's going to say as we get to certain parts of Utah. He'll be like,
Nice.
oh, there's the Juana Lopez.
Yeah, I'm sure when you're driving by yourself, you just hear that script in your head like a
exactly.
recording.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, what time
I can drive.
in tag with you.
With Jim, I can drive. He's a great guy, but I think between his eyesight and the always looking around to talk about stuff,
Geology,
he's
yeah,
a little,
can be very
he's
distracting.
a little scary if you're the passengers. It's always good. Sorry, Jim.
We're getting a lot of support in chat right now. Thank you so much, everybody, for your financial support. Really appreciate that. That keeps me going.
Yeah, and thanks for those who donated to our student food fund too. We're
Yeah.
up to $255. So
Holy cow, that is awesome,
that's been
everybody.
really helpful because the survey gives Jim and I and Ethan per diem, but they don't give us money to help support students. But we feel that it's important to get students out here. So this year we've had quite a number of students.
Nice.
And we get a professor from Kutztown University, Ed Simpson, who we work with closely each year. He chips in a little money for student food.
Nice.
Utah Friends of Paleontology, if we're a little short, they tend to send some our way. So it's really nice because they're out here volunteering and traveling out here and doing everything. So to ask them to pay for food seems like if we can do it. And then we also, our per diem's enough that we can pitch in a sizable chunk too. But every little bit helps because, of course, as most of you know, this year food prices have gone up quite a bit. So what normally would have been a $500 a year was probably going to be a $700 a year this year. And then, some of our students have like their Oreos and things like that.
Comfort foods,
Yeah, comfort foods.
So it really did make a big difference, everybody. Thank you so much.
So we really appreciate that. Thanks,
Seriously.
thanks so much.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Dinosaurs
How many students do you
lived
think
a
you've
long
had out
time
here
ago.
while you've been working
They
in
were
Dolan's Bowl
terrible
over the years?
lizards, don't you know?
we would typically have 3 to 4 to 5 each year, and then also including our work like at Crystal Geyser, Don's Ridge, Andrew's Site, various quarries. So I would bet we're over 100 students that we've mentored since we started.
That's a big impact. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
something
so we,
Hi and good afternoon everyone.
some people
Paleo
are
here.
like, why are you guys out there in July and August when it's the hottest time of the year? But that's when the academic calendar means we can have students.
Jim talked all about that. That's
Yeah.
his soapbox.
Yeah, he would like to
should
change
change
the. He probably has a little more inflated sense of his place in the universe. I'm not sure if they're going to change the academic
Hey, I
calendar
wish, yeah.
so that we can have students out here in October would be perfect. Springtime's pretty good. It tends to be a little windy sometimes, so I know people who have sworn off doing springtime, but if you can deal with a little wind. But we are pretty good about using our shade tarps. Out at the quarry, we're expert tarpologists.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about tarpology.
So, yeah, if you're out here this time of year, today is actually fairly reasonable. It's only going to be a high of about 98. But
Only 98
Only
Fahrenheit,
98.
yeah.
We've had, I think 105's probably been about the highest. And then, of course, if you had a thermometer a couple inches off the ground, where we spend all our time out here,
Exactly, yeah.
then you're talking 120, 130. And also very much light.
Definitely, yeah.
Shadows.
It kind of saps all the moisture out here,
Be
too.
pretty much just sucking water the whole time. So we have a system where we have these little anodized corners, and we use electrical conduit, and we have tarps of various kinds. We have a plastic tarp, like a regular tarp you would think of. We have some mesh tarps, which do a little better in the wind. We have some toggle balls that we use to attach it. So essentially, we make an 8x10.
The signal. I don't know why. Okay, it's increasing.
I'm not sure I don't Jim us out here.
What's that?
Oh, I was just looking to see the time to make sure we
Ah.
could go for an hour or something, but we don't have to
Yeah.
bludgeon them.
Alright, it's going up. We're almost at a point where it's usable now.
Probably right in the middle of something. I was like, but yeah.
Alright, I think it's... shoot, it's going down again.
You think it goes out a little bit further? Or
I don't know, it was really good when it was right there. I'm not sure why it... Sometimes it just kind of does this. Like, cellular networks can be really squirrely.
Yeah.
That should be pretty good, I think. Should be a decent angle. And... okay, I think we are back on. Let's see here. Let's ask chat. Everybody, can you see and hear us now? Welcome back, says Claire. Thank you, Claire. Appreciate it. I don't know why, the signal just cut out. Yeah, it just does that sometimes.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's what happens when you're out here in the desert.
Exactly, yeah, up in the
It's the real
eastern
deal out
Utah.
here, yeah.
This isn't Disneyland, you know, stuff like this happens. But yeah, welcome back, everybody. For anybody who's just walking in right now, welcome back to Paleontologizing. I'm Danny Anduza, and this is Don DiBlieux, assistant state paleontologist with Utah. Yeah.
Geological Survey.
So yeah, it's been my crew chief for the past 3 weeks, and we've had a blast out here digging up iguanodontian bones, and yeah, it's been super hot out here in Dueling's Bowl, but luckily we've had the protection of some pretty ingenious shade tarps.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about the academic calendar and why we end up out here in the hottest months of the year.
Yeah.
Partly we skip June because there's gnats then, so it's not only hot, but then you're getting bitten by these tiny little no-see-em things that don't seem like much when you first get them, but then they welt up and they're horrible. So we usually figure like mid-July to mid-August there's no gnats, and it starts to cool down. We get some monsoons coming in. As you know, we've had a little bit of rain. But
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, the reason that we make it work is that we tarp over the quarry, so we have, I don't know how far we got into that before we got dropped.
Before it cut out, yeah.
But anyways, we've got a shade tarp set up where we make rectangles out of conduit and these corners, and we can string the tarps over those, and then we rope those in just because the wind is an issue out here, and then we can spring others off. So we've refined the system over the years, so we have it pretty good. But I was telling Danny that I actually gave a presentation at the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology preparator session on advanced tarpology, so tarpology 501, advanced shade tarp techniques.
What are some mistakes that people make when they're tarping over a site?
I think the one reason why people are like, oh, I never use tarps is because they tried a blue tarp or green tarp or something that wasn't neutral, and it messes up the light. One of the biggest advantages of a neutral colored tarp is that it really makes nice even lighting. Out here the light is so harsh, like if we're out there right now between the sun and the shadows, and besides keeping us alive, it makes it a lot more pleasant to see the bones and what you're doing, because it's pretty subtle here. Like you,
definitely, I was surprised by that. I'm used to Hell Creek or Judith River where the bone just kind of jumps out at you.
Yeah.
Like I didn't realize how lucky I had it there. This is some advanced stuff. It's been good.
Yeah. So we have it's hard the first couple days because we're just getting the tarp system set up. Like here, the first time we set it up over at Don's Place area, we realized in the afternoon, like, oh, we need to move it in the morning over. So we do the main tarp, we string some off to the east for the morning
like a lean-to kind of a
we
setup.
Do a lean-to style. That was one of our innovations with the nail and the lean-to and that kind of stuff.
Nice, yeah.
And then being a rock climber, knowing all the various knots and stuff helps. So we have a rigorous knot tying class before the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how you do it. But anyways, each morning we set them up, including the southern and western side. That'll keep us shady in the afternoon. Just to have an area of shade so the ground doesn't heat up. But it definitely makes it doable.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we'd be drinking probably 5 times as much water if we didn't have those. It would be almost unworkable.
So yeah, that's really handy. So yeah, I think the neutral colored tarp is important. Ones that can handle the wind. That's why we have those mesh ones, work well in the wind. But out here when it's just 105 or something, it's nice to have a full shade as well. So we've experimented with various kinds, but just those, the mesh ones help for the wind, but then having a solid one. And then as we mentioned, that might have been cut off, we use the same solid tarps to then cover the quarry in the afternoon when we're done, just in case it rains. So
those frames that are, I think, like the linchpin in all of this, those are really cool. With Museum of the Rockies, we would just have 2x4s, and then they'd have nails in the top, and then you'd string the tarp across those and have guy lines going down to the sides. But we'd have to take it all down afterward, and it stretches things out, and the wind blows it, and it's, I really like the system we have here. It's,
and then leaving, once you get the frame set up, then each night you just pop them off, and we use the little toggle balls, so it's pretty easy to... So
did you pioneer that system?
Minutes. I think, because these garages, the thing we're seeing in now, had those little toggle balls, so that's when we got the idea, like,
but I mean with the conduit and the corners like that.
No, Jim had already learned it from, I think George Callison may have done it out when he worked over in the Fruta Paleo area.
Okay.
So we didn't come up with the conduit part, but it used to be, they had to have those things like custom welded.
Oh,
but now, because the conduit thing is common enough that people make shelters out of them, you can actually get them from hardware stores or various tarp places.
That's neat.
So it's much easier to find those corners now, and you can get them various diameters. We do the 3/4 inch conduit, which is any hardware store or home improvement store will have that 3/4 inch conduit. And
did you have to drill the things with the eyelets in yourself, or does it come like that?
No, they come like that. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
So so that makes it a lot easier. I think even Nick, when he saw those, was like, his little Burning Man head was going. He's like, maybe I should do something like that.
We had a crew member who he was here for the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, a little over a week.
Over a week, but he's done a lot of like Burning Man. I guess he like runs one of the camps there and everything, and it's cool to have him out here. Yeah.
So that was nice.
It's, I don't know. I've done a lot of field work in the past, but like every time you meet new people or join a new field crew, you always learn a bunch of stuff, and I've learned so much this summer.
And that's the thing. Jim and I, we like to visit other field camps. Some people are like, no, that's the way we do it, and but we're always willing, if there's a better way to do it, why not? So we go to a camp and we're like,
hello,
they're doing this, we're going
the creature we will be examining is a
doing it. So anytime that we come up with something that makes more sense, we want to make it as easy and efficient out here as we can. So the shade tarps are crucial just for making it work, and then I have a little handout, and my presentation's actually on the SVP website. And
that's cool.
Thing if people want to see that. But and then each preparator session, I usually bring those handouts, and it tells you where to get the parts you need, and then just some things that we've learned. And people have done it differently. I know when I was visiting Ethan, he was working with Luis Chiappe down in towards Blanding on a Morrison dinosaur.
Yeah.
And they had black mesh tarps, which seemed to work pretty well.
That's what we had at MOR too. Yeah.
But then they had some really big poles, and then they had stuff like duct tape together. And there was one time when they were actually, the girl had to like shimmy up the pole and do the duct tape, and I was like, oh.
Off the ground. Wow.
Yeah, because it was a pretty big quarry, so they had it really high, which was nice. But I was like, yeah, you could probably make that a little more efficient. Having to have the smallest person on the crew shimmy up the pole, it might be a little taller than you really need. And I do like it tall enough to stand up underneath if you're always like.
Definitely, yeah.
And then,
if you have to hunch over, that definitely wears
and
on
then,
you.
Jim said these portable garages that we're sitting under now, I guess Ken Carpenter used to take them and he would saw these legs down. So
have them over the quarry.
Over the quarry.
That's interesting.
But he's a fairly short guy. So
Yeah.
he probably,
Ken Carpenter's not very tall.
I wouldn't be, having to bend over there wouldn't be so good. So. And now we've got a little wind going. But we just closed down the quarry today, so we took down all the shade tarps. And Danny, along with 3 of the other folks out here, students, have been out here. This is their 21st day.
Yeah.
In the desert.
3 weeks now. Yeah.
They've only had one. They had one dip in the silty and
Colorado River, down in Moab,
and a few little wet ones, showers, and that kind of thing. But they're getting fairly ripe.
Yeah. I've got wet wipes and stuff in it. But it's going to be really nice to be able to take an actual Hollywood shower. You know?
Right. There'll be some. And the longest I went one time when I was working in Egypt, I went 7 weeks without a real shower. So
holy cow!
That was a record I hope to never break. But But I mean, I washed a lot. But then I was sloughing a fair amount of dead skin by the end of that shower.
Definitely, yeah. You just get kind of a sheen of like bug spray and suntan, like sunscreen and sweat and
out there
grit.
It was sandy, so it was relatively clean dirt. But sometimes a few days in Cairo without a shower would feel much worse.
I think my record up until this point is 16 days without a shower, so
you get a
new record this summer.
Record
But and Patrick Pirate says, I love how it went from 1, maybe 2 weeks to staying 3. I just having too much fun here, Patrick Pirate. Yeah.
It was 3 weeks ago tomorrow is when we drove out here. So
and that's when we're leaving is tomorrow.
Yep.
So I'll be home in Oakland hopefully I'll be able to stream on Thursday, everybody, if you want to tune in.
But we're happy. Thanks for letting Danny stay out here all this time. It's kind of nice to keep it open-ended just in case we're like, hey, isn't it time for you to... I think there's someone back in Oakland calling for you.
But it's been good. And I feel like I've learned a whole lot this summer, and almost all my work's been up in Montana, and so like being down here in the Southwest is, in the early Cretaceous, it's really different.
Quite a bit older, and the bone's not quite as pretty, but Hell Creek, anybody who's working there.
Certainly, there are many more dinosaurs waiting to be
It's some pretty stuff, it really is.
Many new mysteries waiting to be pondered.
Were you working in... so how long have you been working in Doling's Bowl proper?
So we've been working the Cedar Mountain Formation, which is the early Cretaceous stuff, and then we've been concentrating on the Yellow Cat, which is the basal member of it, and it's pretty much just crops out on a outcrop belt along here from west to east, just from Green River pretty much over here towards north of Moab, and then just over the Colorado border. But the Yellow Cat's only deposited pretty much in this little northern section of Grand County.
So this is really the only place in the world where you can find this fauna.
This fauna. As Jim mentioned in that thing, there was some salt tectonics we think was going on, and so there was little basins being formed on either side of the uplift of the tectonic areas. So originally when I started the job, we worked quite a bit over at the Crystal Geyser Quarry, where we found and described Falcarius.
So we may have actually seen you in there was a documentary that was made about the Crystal Geyser
Utah's dinosaur graveyard.
We watched that live on stream probably a year ago or something like that.
We were in that one, and then worked that a number of years in the early 2000s. So 2001 through 2005 or so. And then while we were working out there, I found an area just to the west of there with a number of sites that we named Don's Ridge. There was just enough sites. I figured, okay, they can only name one site after you, so
pick that one.
I'm going to pick the ridge where there's a bunch of sites. So, and then we ended up finding a new iguanodont up there, Iguana colossus.
Iguana colossus,
and then a couple different quarries up there. So we worked that for a number of years, and then we worked Andrew's site, which is not too far from here, that we named the Hippodraco from the iguanodont. And then as we jacketed and got out these iguanodont bones, it turns out as we were making these fairly large jackets, we were jacketing unknown bonus material. So it turns out there was a Hippodraco skull that we didn't know we had.
That's a good feeling to see.
There was
that
a
in the
little
lab.
mammal
Yeah.
skull, the only mammal known from anywhere in the lower Cedar Mountain.
Yeah, that's the world's oldest marsupial, right? Is that the
That
same
one is actually a thing called a Haramyid.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
it's a weird kind of a
Was that,
gondwana animal. And that was published by Adam Huttenlocker and people. So it's actually a pretty good sized skull. For
Is that Cephalodon?
Yeah. Cephalodon.
Yeah. Cephalodon.
And that one probably like the size of a cat or something, which is pretty big for Mesozoic mammals.
Yeah, seriously.
The Mussentuchit, which is the uppermost member of the Cedar Mountain, is in some ways not super related to the stuff we're working in here. It sits on top of it. That is a mammal graveyard mammal. Like they've got 70 plus species or something. There's just like
in the Mussentuchit?
a major bonanza. Yeah, so all kinds of little
didn't even realize that. Yeah,
lizards and mammals and things. So tons of stuff from there, but pretty much from everything below that in the Cedar Mountain, the yellowcat member, the poison strip member, ruby ranch member, even though people have been hitting this hard for 30 years. Not a single mammal, not a tooth, not a bone, nothing. But this little bonus skull was in there, so that was pretty exciting. And then there was a bonus croc skull in there and part of some armor and part of the...
Must have been a big jacket.
Yeah, so this was in a couple different jackets.
Okay,
but,
okay.
Yeah, so that was pretty amazing. So as we were working over there, Jim used to come in here and bring people around Doling's Bowl, because just behind us there's that little wind-deflated area where you find the little osteoderms and teeth and stuff. So he decided in 2005, like, there's got to be more of a site out there somewhere. So Scott Madsen and Jim and I came out here, spent the whole day prospecting this bowl.
At that time,
didn't
the
find
land
much
of
of
the planet
anything.
was clumped
And
together
Jim,
in one
there was
vast
a
supercontinent.
pretty good size scoop.
Dinosaurs
of a
soon occupied
Allosaur
every
over on
corner of
tooth
that world.
flat area that was big enough to be jacketed. So he got some gypsum, and it was towards the end of the day, and Scott and I were like, oh, geez. All right, I guess we're going to do some more prospecting instead of watching Jim jacket this thing. And then I thought, well, it's all on this green stuff. So we stayed in a really flat, kind of a nondescript area that you wouldn't think about necessarily prospecting. And I came around a corner and I saw some bone kind of trickling out of the side of the wash. And then I walked over, kind of right where the road goes through, and I found more bone, literally 10 feet from the road. And later we looked closer and we're like, hey, look, there's actually bone in the road. People have been driving over. And at the same time I was discovering that, Scott was walking down the wash on the far side of what turned out to be the site, and he found bone coming out of a wash. And he went and got Jim, and they drove up, and he's like, I found bone over there. I'm like, look at this. And we realized we had. And it turns out some of the very first bone that was exposed was some cervical vertebra and some caudal vertebra from a little theropod, a little dromaeosaur that we ended up naming Yurgavuchia.
Yurgavuchia, which means...
Yurgavuch is the Ute Indian name for coyote.
Pretty cool. Yeah, that's a great name.
It sounds
extinction of dinosaurs is the
Yurgavuchia
absolute
It sounds like Slavic or something.
Yeah, Slavic
large
dinosaurs,
mammals into our own existence
Albania
for
or
that
something.
matter.
But, nope, Yurgavuchia, Doling Eye, so he named it after Helmut Doling. And he's the one who first alerted Jim via his geologic map of this area.
The Cedar Mountain area.
Yeah, Helmut Doling's been working for the survey since the 50s. He's in his early 90s. He's still out there mapping in Utah. He's probably stood in more places in Utah than any other living human, I would think. Just mapping the geology for 50 plus years, just going all over the place.
That's a cool life to lead. Yeah.
So to get back to the question, so in 2005 is when we discovered some bone here, and then we came out in 2006 and dug up the little Yurgavuchia and did a little bit of exploratory, and then in 2007 we started over at Don's Ridge, and then halfway through the season, once we kind of had that buttoned up, we came back over here, and that was our first camp here, and that's when we decided to set up camp here. It's kind of nice because this is a little cozy spot with lots of tent areas, and then it's a 5-minute walk to the quarry, but we're not.
Which is great. I've never been, at a field site like that before. Maybe once, where like you can walk to the quarry in just a couple minutes.
It's nice to not be right on it, because then you do have a reason to leave. It's been pretty nice to be in the spot, and I've got my little tent spot over there where you see the little tent square.
Just year after year.
Year after year.
Yeah,
even a couple of the stakes I can't get out, I just leave it there for the next year. So I've spent, of all those 2 to 3 years I've spent with Jim, I've spent at least a year of it out here with him, and with the dozens of students and people that we've mentored. So it's pretty fun. We have one of them taking a nap right under the table over there. So. So yeah, we buttoned up everything today, so it's kind of nice to get. Often it's burning the midnight oil, getting it out last minute because we always have more bones. We're like, don't find any more. But, so luckily it was nice to be able to do the last.
Have some kind of time to breathe and
last few jackets. Get everything over here.
And this is kind of cool, like a chance to reflect, talking about this right now too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're trying to do this earlier, and then we were actually going to do it on Friday, but then I had a household plumbing disaster back in Park City, so
yeah, it happens.
I was emotionally drained from dealing with that from afar, so I didn't really have it in me.
Well, I'm glad you're back. Yeah,
this is to talk with all you folks.
Yeah. And again, if anybody's just tuning in right now, welcome to Paleontologizing. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit because I think people are having some difficulty seeing us. The lighting is a little...
We're a little backlit.
We're very backlit, but that's... I mean, you can't really do this in the sun. Man, that camera's crooked now.
It's only 98 out there.
Somebody do the weather command for Thompson Springs. Let's see what the current temperature is at the town that's almost kind of nearby. We're in a pretty remote area here. But yeah.
Thompson Springs or Cisco I do sometimes. It's just a little bit to the west of
Cisco? Is that with an S or a C at the beginning? C. C-I-S-C-O? Somebody do...
Cisco Kid.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
It's actually kind of a ghost town now. It used to.
Let's see.
There's a few little...
98 in Thompson Springs, it says.
Yeah, I bet we're about 98 here, I don't know, after 105, 7 degrees cooler.
I know, it's positively...
we got a little breeze coming through here.
Yeah.
Extinction is the
pretty nice.
Extinction didn't
But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the critters that we've dug up so far over the past 3 weeks. Yeah, I mean, we've got an iguanodont.
Yeah, so the most common bones here, so that first area where I found those bones, we found the little partial skeleton of Yurgavuchia.
Which is a little theropod, maybe like an ancestor of Utah raptor.
The cervicals are only that big. They're pretty small, and then the caudals. So pretty much all the type material fits on a little 12 by 12 block of epifoam that we have them all into. So,
nice.
And then we've got a few other bones. We've got a pubis that goes with it, and part of an ilium. And stuff like
pretty big pubis, right?
Yeah, it's that model.
Big for a dromaeosaur, at least.
Yeah. And then we do have. We got an ankylosaur pelvis. That when we flip that, we have the bonus. We get a lot of bonuses in our jackets. Yeah. But there was what we think is a larger, more of an adult Yurgavuchia. So there was an ilium, pubis, and the ischium all on the bottom of that thing that kind of squashed. So we got a little bit of theropod stuff, but mainly that first area kind of became Don's Place, dubbed Don's Place, because that's where I found the first bone. So because it's such a big site, we have little sub-sites that we mapped and give them the numbers. And so we worked Don's Place.
On former occasions, he's called Brontosaurus. Big fella, isn't he? 70 feet long. Tips the scales at a substantial 35 tons.
Limb bones and that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, not a lot of skull material. We've got a couple of little juvenile basicrania from there, but ankylosaurs have pretty beefy skulls, so it's surprising that we don't find the skulls. But we think a lot of this stuff was probably swampy area. You get a lot of animals probably being washed in from nearby, maybe still partially articulated. We get a lot of croc teeth, and we do have a lot of, just about all the ankylosaur osteoderms have what look like crocodile bite marks. So there's probably some predation on this stuff, getting a little bit
there for a while before actually
maybe the skull was even more enticing for them. It seems like it wouldn't be that great, but
I wouldn't think so. They don't have a huge brain inside or anything.
Want to eat, they're like, it looks good.
It's hard to imagine them cracking open an ankylosaur skull.
So a lot of ankylosaur stuff, and this year we did work some in the Don's Place and got some more osteoderms and scutes and things, and then we do have that big pelvis. And then we have another area called Jim's Place, and adjacent to that is Karen's Place, and that's mostly iguanodonts. And then this year, where you were working mostly over where we found the sauropod that we named Mirasaurus, we found most of it are partially articulated and associated sauropod in this little wash that we dubbed Gary's Island, because it was a little wash in the island. And Gary first found some bones coming out after we had one of our gully washer floods in 2010. And the very last day of the season is when Jim and Gary and I We're the only ones here.
Uh-huh.
And we dug in and we
You found it.
Holy crap, there's a sauropod here. So in 2011, 12, 13, 14, we dug up that sauropod. But as we were flipping the sauropod jackets, which included a hind limb that was stuck down into the mud at an angle. So
from that UGS video it was featured in. Yeah.
Right. So we got almost the whole skeleton of that sauropod. It was a perfect place to find a sauropod. All of us have been dreading, like, oh no, sauropod. Because they're big, and usually you're way up on a hill somewhere. Here we could drive to the site.
Yeah.
We got a couple of pretty big jackets where we couldn't get around stuff.
Yeah.
But as we were flipping the sauropod bones, it turned out underneath there was a level of iguanodont bones. And they were much better preserved. The nice thing about this site is it's very close to the surface, so we don't have a lot of overburden, but also that's a drawback because we have more weathering. But over there, because we were taking these big jackets, we were actually getting down to more solid rock. And everything is dipping a little bit to the north and into this wash, so that's why where you were working this time, we were actually down
under where the sauropod was, basically.
So we had to kind of divert the wash just a little bit so we could keep going. But now we're down at pretty solid bedrock. So that's a pro and a con because it is a little bit harder. But the bone is in much nicer shape because it's amazing. These little scruddy plants here actually have roots that go down quite deep.
Oh, definitely,
because they're trying to get down to the water, and so they find the bone. And then also when you're in the surface stuff, the matrix that's supporting the bones tends to be more weathered and more difficult to deal with. So we were getting some nice bones. So we were down at what we call the iguanodont level because all the bones we found down there were from iguanodonts. And it's probably something fairly similar to that iguanocolossus that we found at Don's Ridge. So we're in the lower yellowcat here. So one of the things based on our work at Crystal Geyser and comparing it with the more common stuff that had been dug before that has like Utah raptor and Gastonia is higher in the yellowcat, we realized it's a different fauna separated by this calcrete that we see just above us here. So we realized this: if you find a site below that calcrete, you're in the lower yellowcat,
right?
And it's a completely different set of animals than that you find in the upper yellowcat. So
but how much time do you think is represented there?
I mean, it's hard to know how much that calcrete
do we have like good dates on that
from? The dating out here is fairly difficult. There's not easy volcanic ashes. There's been work done on stable isotopes and things, so it's getting more refined now than it used to be. It used to be kind of a shot in the dark, but I mean, the time period represented by yellowcat, even though vertically, stratigraphically, it's not a ton of rock, but it could be a lot of time, 25 million years or something.
25 million years, holy cow.
And
so it makes sense you'd have turnover.
Something like that calcrete could be a couple million year hiatus there, but we're still working on that. It's not as easy. But yeah, definitely a different fauna. So that's where we have Falcarius, the Therizinosaur. We have the Iguanocolossus from Don's Ridge, which is in the lower. So we have a similar looking iguanodon here based on the pubis. It looks fairly similar. So we've been kind of calling this CF Iguanocolossus. So it would be nice to find a few more skull bones that would overlap with the things that were described for Iguanocolossus, but something like that. But we've got this year some decent vertebra and then quite a few limb bones, femur, tibia. We know it's more than one animal in there. We found a number of things, so it's kind of a hodgepodge of animals. And we do have some of the larger, like close to adult size ones seem to come from over in that area. So we've had some pretty good sized bones. And then luckily this year you found that ilium, which for iguanodonts it turns out the ilia are actually fairly
pretty diagnostic,
so that's good.
Cool.
So a lot of it, as you know, is finding bones that you can compare with other bones that have been found with other ones so that you can decide is it different or not. And then you got a nice pubis just down from your ilium, that could be associated. So the pubis is another bone that it's kind of curved in Iguanocolossus and in this guy, so that's something that could be diagnostic.
I'd love if this turned out to be a new critter. That would be really neat.
Yeah.
Could
be. I mean, maybe we end up calling it the same genus, but a different species.
Yeah, it could be a chronospecies of Iguanocolossus.
We're both in the lower yellowcat, but we don't know.
Yeah.
As Jim said, these sediments out here are like you sit there and you throw a pancake here and a pancake there. So even though they're roughly contemporaneous, they could be separated by hundreds of thousands or millions of years. So we got some decent stuff this year, and we have a ton still back at the lab.
You can probably see some of the jackets behind us over there. It's got like a fisheye lens on the camera, so you might be able to see that.
Yeah, we've got
white splodges over there on the ground. There are some of our jackets.
Quite a few small things that we just do the little gypsum jackets, and then we have some larger things that we did plaster and burlap. Somewhat funny story. is that yesterday at the quarry, I'm like, do we have more burlap? And no, we used all. So we just had, the pubis was still in the ground, and then a nice rib that Bilal had found. So we had a couple more things to jacket, and we had some burlap, but I knew we didn't have any left here. So we were able to top jacket the pubis, and then we got one strip of burlap on the rib. But then today we had to flip the pubis and then also finish the jacket on the big rib, and then flip it, and then of course we put a top jacket, which we call it a top jacket, but actually it's a bottom jacket. So we put that on to seal it up and make it all secure. So I sacrificed 2 old t-shirts, and then after we got back for lunch, we realized we needed to do a little more. So then Ethan and Fisher each sacrificed a t-shirt. So instead of burlap, we used to cut up the t-shirts and use that with the plaster.
It's a weird feeling, like putting plaster on t-shirts.
But it seemed to work pretty well. And then just as we were packing everything up over there, there was a trash bag that I thought was just filled with pillows. And all season I thought these are just pillows. And open it up, sure enough, there's a big wad of burlap in there. So, but if we had used burlap, it wouldn't have been a very fun story at all. So it turns out. They're not optimum, but they do work. So
sure, I've had to cut up shirts before too. Shirts like this in the field in order to make jackets when we ran out of burlap. Or
we figure, they were old t-shirts. So that'll be fun. So they do work. So we got everything out. So.
And people are enjoying these details. Thank you, Fall Machine. I appreciate that.
The details. The old t-shirt. Oh, what kind of t-shirt was it?
You had some cool ones. There was that UPOP t-shirt with the Dilophosaur on it.
Yeah, usually we either have Utah Friends of Paleontology annual meeting t-shirts, or I'm a triathlete and roadrunner, so I have lots of old.
Been admiring all of your athletic t-shirts. Yeah. Do you wear the same ones every summer? Like, do you just have a bag of?
I have a bunch of old
shirts?
ones, and then I haven't done as many races in the last few years, but usually I would do, half dozen races each year, so you have a bunch of t-shirts. And if it's a really nice one, then you use it as like a dress t-shirt. Then eventually it gets a little faded, then it becomes a field t-shirt, and then eventually it becomes a really old field t-shirt. And then you sacrifice just for jackets. Or
the circle of life.
And then a few times you have some of those ones. I found a big stash of old t-shirts, so that's why I had a triathlon t-shirt from 1993 that was still
I was wondering about that.
They don't make them like that anymore. Certain races and t-shirts too, like that's a special one. Other ones you're like, I don't care about that one. So
Fall Machine says, note to research and development: develop burlap t-shirt line for paleontologists.
I was telling Danny about an I Love Lucy episode where they used burlap. Fred and Ricky used burlap to make these designer dresses for Lucy and Ethel, and pretty funny. When they were in France, I think they were. So I don't know. It's a little scratchy on the skin.
Yeah, not the most comfortable.
No, velvet on the other hand.
I've used burlap as blankets before.
No, it's a little scratchy. Now velvet, we would ensconce ourselves in velvet if it was socially
George
acceptable.
Costanza.
Purple.
We've got a good question here from Og the Enigma. They want to know, are small loose fossils jacketed, or can they be transported separately?
Excellent question. Yeah, often we'll find little things that are either separated from the rock or just in a little bit of rock, and then we'll wrap it up in toilet paper. So I worked a bunch in the Fayum of Egypt, and we found lots of small fossils, and we didn't really have a lot of gypsonas or burlap, so we would wrap them up in toilet paper. So you do a couple wraps, and then you make a little tighter wrap, and then you'll do.
Did you ever though
masking tape
have
over
a
the
moment
top, so up
where
to maybe
it was kind of heartbreaking?
I don't know, once it gets up bigger than a softball or something, or up to like half a dinner plate size, then it's a little fragile to do the toilet paper stuff. So we've got boxes of things that were just wrapped up in toilet paper, and those are nice and easy to open up. You can just cut them up, and then when they get a little bit larger, but you still want to do a pedestal and some sort of a jacket, we use medical bandage. So we have these things called gypsonas,
which is new to me. I like that brand name at least.
Yeah. So they're also, some places they use a Johnson & Johnson. So
we've used those before.
They call them JJs. We call them gyppies.
We call them plaster grenades in the Hell Creek.
So those are a little gauze that already have the plaster on them, made for doing. In the old days they would make casts. Now they mostly do. At least around the U.S., they would do a fiberglass cast, or ideally some sort of boot thing. But I think if you're in other places or traveling, they still make the gypsonas. And those are nice because they're already have the plaster on
Super
them.
convenient.
So again, we'll do similar that we would do for a big plaster and burlap jacket, but we'll make it smaller. We'll use toilet paper or paper towel. The toilet paper is nice because you can wet it and really get it to adhere nicely. And then we'll rip off the nice thing about the gypsonas is it's all done by hand. You just rip one off, you double it, you put it in, you bring it out, and then you put it on. And those are nice, so we have a whole pile of like little gypsona jackets. And they're a lot easier to get into back in the lab too.
Oh, really?
Similar, we'll turn it over and cut the bottom off, but you don't need a
cast cutter or anything necessarily.
Or cast cutter or we've got a little diamond bladed angle grinder that we do to cut up the big jacket, so that's kind of easy. And then and we'll even use those little gypsonas if you have a really nice bone but it's larger. We'll often do a gypsona cap on that and do it fairly early on before as we're pedestaling. Sometimes stuff can jostle around a little bit, so we'll often do a little gypsona cap just to keep everything in place, because as we're pedestaling here, the rocks tend to, it's real blocky and tends to form almost these shingles. So as you pound on them, they're all kind of imbricated. So as you get closer to the jacket, it gets a little unstable, and so we'll often do that. And then I think it gives it a nice little cushion. But then for the larger things, we'll do paper towel and the paper
proper
on
burlap,
top, and then we'll do the proper jacket in there. the real dinosaur.
Not that the gypsona is illegitimate in any way.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. The little the thing is, if you had like a really fine burlap and plaster, you could probably make your own kind of thing. But if you're making something little, it's just the plaster would almost be too heavy duty, and then trying to saw into it would be kind of a pain. So the gypsonas are definitely very handy.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about where these fossils are going to end up after you take them back to Salt Lake tomorrow. Yeah.
So we're on BLM land here. Everything most of the things we dig in Utah are on public land.
Yeah, Bureau of Land Management.
Yeah, Bureau of Land Management. We do some stuff on Forest Service land. And then there are little parcels that are state institutional trust land, so those are state parcels that we actually give the permits for working on state land. So when we took out the big Utah Raptor mega block, luckily that was on a state parcel,
state square.
so we could give ourselves a permit to be a little more invasive on the land than the BLM would allow us to. It's all going to melt away, so that road we have is gone. But they would have been like, oh no. But that road went up the brushy basin and stuff, which after a few years just kind of melts away.
Smectitic mud,
so everything you dig up on public land is, because it's public land, the fossils belong to
they belong to us, we the people,
all citizens of the U.S.
Yeah.
So the repository for us is the University of Utah. So the Natural History Museum of Utah is where all our fossils go. So they come back to the UGS. Hopefully we have the time to prepare
them.
We do have a little priority scale that we have on our log sheet. So
nice.
And then also when you dig it up, you kind of know like, oh, that ilium, and if
that's
you
going to be important.
Things, that'll be higher. I'll sometimes put a little asterisk on if I think, oh, that's going to be an important one. So we take them back and prepare them. What might take us, like the things we got out of the quarry today, that took the 6 of us a few hours to do, or 5 of us maybe. I forgot, I lost count.
5 of us,
there's 5 of us. We took those out in the morning, but it could be several weeks of a single person preparing those.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So it's a lot more time consuming back
painstaking work in the lab, very detailed, very slow going.
So then once we get them finished up in the lab, say these iguanodonts we'll hang on to because they're still being studied. You can study them up at the U, but it's kind of nice to have them in our possession.
Yeah.
And then eventually, the bigger things, once you take them out of the jacket, we'll make a lab jacket or a cradle for them so that they can, if they're something that you could pick up and handle, we would do just a half shell that they would sit in. If it's something big, that
like a big long rib or something like that.
A big rib or a big long bone that you can't really take out and handle, then we'll make a clamshell jacket. So instead of using plaster and burlap, we'll use
fiberglass and plaster.
Yeah, we'll use fiberglass and plaster, and we'll use a hydrocal, which is a little bit stronger. So they can be thinner and lighter, and still strong. So, and then we'll use a little ethafoam. Some people will use a felt as a separator, but we've had good luck with the ethafoam. So we'll make that. So if you have something big, you can make the clamshell with the edges that overlap.
Science is like a blabbermouth who ruins a movie by telling you how it ends. Well, I say there are some things we don't want to know. Important things.
That's one of my jobs for the next 4 or 5 years that I'm with the survey, is to make sure we get a lot of that stuff reposited up at the U.
Nice.
Because we have a ton of stuff still to go up there.
Do they have room up there? I've been in those collections
yeah,
before.
they need. Unfortunately, they didn't make it big enough. But hey, they're obligated to take our stuff, so
they'll figure it out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. So I probably could go back and not do any research, any more field work, any more reports.
To spend the rest of your career just managing that?
Just managing the repositing of all those.
Well, that wouldn't be as much fun.
No, it's not as much fun, but it needs to be done. But hopefully, even after I'm retired, I'm still around to help out with some of that, because that could be kind of a fun thing to do a few hours a week. But before they take them, they want to have all the material, all the associated materials. So they want to have the maps and the log sheets and the reports and that kind of stuff, photographs, quarry maps, things like that. So, but yeah, it's fun. And then at least we're trying to get all of our holotype material, all the things that we've named a dinosaur on that material up to the U, so people can come to study it. But it's kind of nice we have some of it, so if someone comes to the U to study, they also have to come visit us at the UTS. To look
have to come say hi.
Stuff. It was fun when we had all the Mirasaurus stuff, because we worked with a colleague from Spain and then a couple of his colleagues, so they came in, so we had all the stuff laid out in the course center, so it was pretty fun to have everything there. So and that was pretty neat to have everything there and have them come to study that. So.
Yeah. Well, shoot, back in, that must have been 2015, I think. I drove down from Bozeman, Montana to the U to look at and photograph the Diabloceratops skull. And I'm told that's your baby. You discovered and prepped that too, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, when I first started the job, we had some funding from the BLM down in Grand Staircase, Escalante National Monument. So the Grand Staircase, of course, most people know, has been an amazing treasure trove of dinosaurs.
Definitely, yeah.
And so we worked along with the University of Utah. They had a little larger crew and younger folks that were a little more gung-ho. So they took the Kaparowitz Formation, which is richer and has many dinosaurs in there. A bunch of new ones have been named.
The Cosmo from there?
Cosmoceratops, Utah Ceratops, lots of ceratopsians, lots of hadrosaurs. So we decided we would take the Wahweap, which is a little bit less rich, but still has fossils.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, if we find anything there, it'll be cool, because it'll almost certainly be new. And since we were a smaller crew, we didn't have to work quite as hard excavating. It was a lot more prospecting.
Yeah.
At one of my first trips down there in the spring of 2002, I found a site, and I walked over after I'd recorded that to see if it continued over and take some pictures of the site I had found. And I looked down and I saw this little, I actually set my pack down and saw this little, looked like a little half a golf ball like sticking out of the rock. And I saw some bone. And I had been working on another ceratopsian that they collected from Grand Staircase, the Nipple Butte, or Josh's ceratopsian. So I knew kind of what the back of the skull of a ceratopsian looked like.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a mammal guy in background, so I've had to learn. I'm a reluctant dinosaur paleontologist now. So there was this little ball sticking out and some other stuff, and as I looked a little more closely, I realized, like, well, that's an occipital condyle of a ceratopsian.
So that's the part that attaches to the neck from the skull, the little trailer ball.
Yeah, they look like a trailer hitch in ceratopsian, so their heads probably could do lots of mobility. They probably turn sideways and chomp down small trees and things. So realized it was part of ceratopsian skull. Came back a couple days later, cleaned up all the rock. It was kind of cool because it was on this ledge and you could stand next to it almost like working on a table.
Yeah.
And I got rid of all the stuff, and then there was one point I knew, like, there's kind of the front of the skull, there's where some teeth are, there's kind of the horn, and you could see a little bit of those big holes in the back of the frill, the big fenestra. There's the parietal bar that forms the center, and I could just see the parietal bar going back, and then I realized at one point it finally clicked, and I was like, holy shit, it's a whole skull. I realized, like, it's a cross section, like this thing laying in the rock, and it's planed off the right side. So I realized that, like, the entire left side of the skull is in this sandstone.
That's an amazing feeling when that happens.
Yeah, that was like, and then it was a 3-year process. So I found in the spring of 2002, and finally airlifted out in November of 2005. So
oh wow!
We had to go back and rock saw, smaller, and then get it in, plaster the top, get it in a cargo net, have it. It was a pretty cool day to see that helicopter coming over the ridge.
Oh yeah!
Dropping it on the truck and getting it back. getting it back to the lab, and then I spent 2 winters. It took me about 800 hours of air scribe preparation. The cool thing about being in a sandstone like that is the bone was completely undistorted, and it looked like mahogany or something. It was just this beautiful brown bone.
That's awesome.
And then, and then you just had, after an hour's work, you exposed another square centimeter of rock. But yeah, it turned out to be a pretty cool thing, and then got that prepared, and then we studied a bunch of other Centrosaurian, ceratopsians. So Jim and I wrote the paper, and then published in 2010. So
awesome. So you can look it up at home, everybody. That would be Kirkland and DiBlieux 2010.
Right.
Diabloceratops. Yeah.
Yeah, it was I think we just had I forget the actual full title, but we named it. We named Josh's as well, or studied it. So it's a couple ceratopsians from Grand Staircase, and it was in a big volume of. They had a big ceratopsian.
Is that New Perspectives on the Horned Dinosaurs?
Yeah, so it's in that. So.
That's been on my wish list for I don't know how long. It's super expensive and really hard to find now.
Okay.
But
they should have published more of them, I guess. So that
I think I've got a PDF in my collection though.
Pretty fun. So that one, pretty much when they say what's your favorite dinosaur, first I throw them off by saying the Rufus hummingbird. I'm like, what? They are pretty cool looking.
They are cool, yeah. Some of the smallest dinosaurs, yeah.
And then, non-avian dinosaur, then it has to be Diablo just because it's pretty cool. And actually, our colleague, Rob Gaston, was the one who made the cast. He took what we had, cast that, and then was able to reconstruct the other side that had been eroded away, and then recast or remold that and then make a cast. So a lot of museums now have the skull of Diabloceratops.
I saw it at several museums just on this trip, over the past 2 months.
My wife Amy, for my 60th birthday, said I want to get you a ceratopsian for over the mantle on our fireplace. So I talked to Rob, and he made one for cost for me. So,
that's pretty awesome.
So at my home now, I've got the Diabloceratops skull above the mantle.
What a trophy!
On the fireplace, it's a good conversation piece for sure. So I have that I have that volume nearby. So when people say, "Hey, what's going on with that?" I can pull out the chapter and show them what it looked like. In that picture, you see the picture of the little ball and stuff.
Oh, nice!
When I first took it.
Nice.
So, it was so that one's kind of fun. And then between Yurgavuchia and Iguana colossus, for a reluctant dinosaur paleontologist, I found 3 new species of
not bad for a reluctant dinosaur paleontologist.
Then, I found another ceratopsian in Grand Staircase that will probably be named at some point. But that one was funny. I found it not long after finding Diablo, and I almost was embarrassed. I was like, "Oh man, this is not fair. I should not be able to find 2 new ceratopsians in Grand Staircase." But if you walk around enough looking down, then
they turn up for sure.
Once in a while.
Didn't you say you also have was it like a chondrichthyan fish named after you, or?
Yeah, so Jim did a paper there was a Grand Staircase volume, and he's interested in quite a few different things, but he worked on the freshwater sharks from Grand Staircase and surrounding areas down in southern Utah. So I do have a little freshwater shark named after me.
Very nice. Do you remember the genus and species?
Yeah, so it's Columbusia, so kind of like Columbus, but Columbusia DiBlieux. So.
I like it.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe they'll name that ceratopsian after me. So. For a while, when we were first digging up that Iguana colossus, since it was on Don's Ridge, we referred to it as
Iguanodon?
No, we call it Donodon.
Donodon, I like it a lot.
Yeah, since I was on the paper, it's kind of bad. People often ask, why don't you name it after yourself? And like,
you can't do that. That's against IUCN rules,
it's
right?
It's kind of bad form, too.
Yeah,
You got to, hopefully you do something that somebody will name something after you someday. So, have an obscure little freshwater shark. But,
that's pretty cool, though.
Better than nothing.
That's a form of immortality.
Right.
Specialists will be talking about that for, centuries into the future.
I was kind of hoping for immortality through not dying, but if it has to be my work, I guess that was kind of stolen from Woody Allen. I don't care about immortality through my work, rather immortality through not dying. I don't know. That would probably be overrated too. I don't know. The way the world is going these days, I'm kind of glad that I'm old.
Yeah, I was going to say
I'll be gone before the shit really hits the fan.
If there are paleontologists in 100 years, then they'll be talking about that shark. But and shoot, if anybody has just waltzed in recently, welcome to Paleontologizing. I'm Danny Anduza. I'm joined by Don DiBlieux, my crew chief here for the past 3 weeks, and assistant state paleontologist for the state of Utah.
I don't know how long we've been going here. We can probably...
Yeah,
we do have a little work to do, but
sure.
I mean, this was a lot of fun. But after I know Jim bludgeoned you guys for 4.5 hours,
it was a long time for sure.
It's fun
yeah.
once you get going talking about yourself.
Of course,
it's pretty fun. But
let's see. Well, let me connect to that. But I think
not quite.
Somebody do the uptime command, and we'll see how long we've been going. Yeah. And Haraz says we need a Dono Don and a Danny Don.
Oh, there you go.
There's a Danny Ceratops somewhere, but that's just the name of the site. That's not the name of the actual critter, but it should be a new Ceratopsian once it gets published.
And Duzai would be pretty good, though.
It would be, yeah. I'd like the
Maybe we just get rid of the A and just
and
say
Duzai.
Duzai.
We've been going for 1 hour 9 minutes so far.
Okay.
So if you want to wrap it up so we can start cleaning up camp,
if anyone has any questions or something, we can do it.
Yeah, shoot, let's do like a lightning round. Anybody, if you've got any questions for the next couple minutes, don't be hesitant. That goes right in.
This is how I distinguished myself from Jim by only doing a little over an hour. Well, plus, was that an hour including the little hay?
Oh, yeah, including the like 10 or 20 minutes, whatever that was in advance, yeah.
Jim be the windbag of all time. He may watch that.
He was great, yeah.
And Jim, I've given him crap for years. He takes it well. So.
Jim is Don's, I guess, technically your boss, right?
Yeah.
So,
but he's we're colleagues. But
yeah.
Whereas
it's like weird to say boss versus like
we talked
you're not
about
an underling. It's not how it works. Yeah.
Somebody was the Brad Pitt of paleontology. Jim, we decided, was the Rodney Dangerfield. They get no respect. No respect.
No respect at all.
No respect at all. I tell Jim, well, respect must be earned. He's like, get out here, Don.
We did that tradition that I always used to do with Museum of the Rockies every year, where it's like if we made if there were a movie made about this field season, which actors would play each of us, and for you it was either going to be Bill Nye or what's his name, Sam Waterston from Law and Order. I could see that.
Yeah. Maybe a young Sam Waterston.
Yeah, he is getting up there, I guess.
Yeah. And then I do every once in a while, depending on how I'm looking. If I wear a bow tie, for sure, I get the Bill Nye thing. But
did you say somebody came up to you once?
I've had people say I look like Bill Nye, but there was one time a guy actually thought I was. Like I was in the visitor center in Joshua Tree National Park, and one of the ranger guys came up. Because that's cool. If I was Bill Nye, I say, well, I am a scientist. I trim my eyebrows a little more than Bill does.
I am a science guy, but not.
No, not. And I just say, soap makes water wetter. It is Bill Nye. I'm a sexier, more athletic version of Bill Nye. I don't know, Bill Nye's pretty sexy. He was on Dancing with the Stars, too. He might be more athletic than me, too.
I doubt that. I don't know. I don't think he's
smarter.
I don't think he's a triathlon guy.
No, maybe not.
I doubt that, yeah.
But I don't know, I'll take it. It's not bad. I like it.
And then we were saying, I came up with John Goodman for Jim Kirkland, and I think it's a good fit. Yeah. We got a question here. Is there a particular species of dinosaur that would be the biggest surprise to find at this site? Shoot, I don't know.
Well, we talked a little bit about, we saw a thing the other day, we weren't sure. There was always a chance we could find a Cretaceous stegosaur.
That would be very, very cool, because if you were to find a Cretaceous stegosaur, it would make sense.
Because I think they do survive elsewhere into the early Cretaceous.
Yeah, maybe even the middle Cretaceous, potentially in Mongolia.
Because obviously they're here during the Morrison time, and then now that we've been finding that especially this lower yellow cat and the yellow cat itself, and most of the Cedar Mountain is quite a bit older than we thought.
Yeah.
There's not as much gap between those Morrison Formation dinosaurs.
We used to think there was like a huge jump between the end of the Morrison, the end of the Jurassic, and like Cedar Mountain Formation, and that just keeps shrinking and shrinking with these dates.
A longer hiatus here.
So it wouldn't be like earth shattering, or it wouldn't be shocking
it would be possible,
to find a
but that's something.
Yeah.
We know we have one Therizinosaur tooth here, so something similar to Falcarius, but all we have is one tooth. Also from the site we have a big Carnosaur tooth.
Yeah,
that would be like
Carcharodontosaur or something,
Acrocanthosaurus or something.
That would be pretty
So finding
cool.
some of the body of that would be really neat.
Yeah. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Yeah.
Or maybe when we're driving out tomorrow to leave.
Maybe we can find a mammal.
We'll find an Acrocanthosaur skull. It's always on the last day, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're lucky we got out early today. Which it happens maybe roughly 50% of the time we get things reasonable. Other times we're still out there 7 at night trying to get the last thing, taking our shirts off, cutting them up, like, oh no, getting some plaster. Oh no, we got all water. So yeah, I think we're kind of running the mill here. We got the iguanodonts, we got the ankylosaurs, we got the sauropod. That was somewhat surprising because we haven't found. I think because it's a little patchy. We found where a few animals died and fell apart here, washed in here and there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know the sauropod got mired, so that's kind of cool. But we found in a few other bones there. So.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Lara Croft wants to know, how do you determine the age of a fossil? Shoot, in this case, it's hard to direct date things.
Right. So we do it relative dating, mostly based on the layers of the strata. So we know what different geologic layers, roughly what age they are. If you have something like the Morrison Formation, which had quite a bit of volcanic activity nearby, and so you have ashes. Ashes are really easy to date radiometrically. And then we use zircons and things, so you can try to date the rocks, and then what. We don't date the actual fossils themselves.
Yeah, the fossils themselves don't have the actual zircons in them.
Rocks that have that they're contained in.
Yep.
So it's a lot of relative, and then we hope to get absolute dates that we can fill them in. So
yeah.
And then we'll also use biostratigraphy, so you can use some of the little ostracods and
critters that evolve really rapidly, that their fossils are really common. We can use those as index fossils for basically
sometimes it'll be something that's near the marine, because a lot of the chronology we know is based on marine sediments.
Yeah.
And marine critters.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago when we went on that field trip with Jim, looking at different Cedar Mountain strata and everything, we actually collected part of a volcanic ash that hopefully will be dated, and that was at the site with all the eggshell fragments and stuff. I did a stream on that day. I was talking about it. But I'd just stay in one spot at the top of the hill, because I'd step 2 feet to the right and signal would completely drop off.
So we have a number of colleagues that we work closely with that work on rare earth isotopes, and then people that do the zircon dating, and then the volcanic ash stuff, and then the ones that look at the different little microorganisms that we can try to date. So that's what's kind of pushing it a little bit older. And then also based on some of the dinosaur fossils too. Yeah. As we compare those with some of the things that you find in England and places like that.
And Claire Burr says, where are we in relation to when you streamed from the top of that hill? The top of the hill with Jim, Claire? That was up there, across the valley. So we're in camp right now. So yeah. And then Dinosaur Dave wants to know, what do you do if you have to leave something in the ground? Well, shoot, we did that today.
Yeah, so don't tell the BLM. No. Occasionally we do have something going in, and it's actually nice to know when we get here next year where the bone level is. Like this year we had a little bit of a fishing expedition at first trying to
find
get
where the bones
bone
are.
level, as we knew we would hit it eventually. But so we will put a little bit of toilet paper in one of those little gypsona jackets that we were talking about. Sometimes we even could, if it's a little bit bigger, we could do a little bit of a burlap and plaster jacket, and then we'll plaster that and then put a little bit of burlap on top and then just bury it with sediment. So that, and then next year we can take that off and then get
just
back
kind of start where we stopped. The
BLM doesn't really want us to leave anything too major out here.
Well, we didn't. It was just little nubbins
a couple little things. And then luckily, or unluckily, the bone here really isn't that pretty. It's scientifically really interesting, but it's not the kind of thing you would display.
Like poachers are going to come out and steal.
You're not
going
to want to have it on your mantle or anything. Unlike some of the Morrison Formation, where there's beautiful, big, hard, solid bones. These are a little bit more beat up looking and not that great. So luckily, there's not a lot of people coming out trying to steal them. So usually, if people hurt them, it's just inadvertently. They're like, "Oh, what's this?" But we bury it deep enough that, and once we have a rainstorm or two, you won't even know where we dug. There's enough little pits and places over there that we dug that you can't. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you'll be like, "Oh, this is dug here. They probably dug there. They dug there." And they've got our little grid nails too from where we do our mapping. So somebody in the know would know that it's a dinosaur excavation, but the people in the know, luckily, won't try to do anything bad to it, hopefully. There are rockhounds that come out. This time of year, we're the only ones silly enough to be out here.
It's really hot out this time of year,
We're the mad dogs and Englishmen right now, but if you were out here in the spring or fall, there'd be people cruising around, because there are some little side-by-side roads that people take, and jeep roads and things like that. Luckily, this one kind of dead end, so if people come in here, they don't really get too far before they're like, okay. But luckily, most people aren't trying to mess with it. So I mean, it is against the law too, but not that that necessarily stops people.
I don't know. It's a remote area, and I don't know.
Hopefully, everything's buried well enough. And like I said, it would be too much work for them to want to do that.
Yeah. And shoot, this is probably a good opportunity to also talk about like the ethics of fossil collecting, like just to kind of tell people if you're ever on public land in the U.S., like those fossils belong to, you know, us, like we the people. They're not for private collection. They're not for anything like that. So, yeah.
So we excavate these things under permit from the BLM, and then they do go to an official repository where they'll stay. So,
yeah.
If you find little rocks and stuff, I usually find, like, do you really need a collection at home of stuff? Like, it's just going to end up in your sock drawer, or we always have people coming by the survey like, Grandpa passed away, we found this in the garage, you know, and it's
like, where's it from?
Rocks
What's the
and
age?
Fossils. There's no context to it. We just, it probably was a Morrison dinosaur
at some point,
or you know, I don't know if you have, I mean, a couple little pieces of petrified wood or a couple little shells.
That's cool to have, I guess. Yeah, just to have that sort of connection to the past.
Things, but yeah, I don't know.
But if they're scientifically important, they belong in a museum.
Yeah, I love collecting things, but I don't really need it.
I don't have any desire to keep this stuff at home. No.
Yeah, it's fun to. I mean, a lot of the sites we do get to check out are things that have been found by people out looking around.
Yeah,
so it's cool to.
It's cool to go out and explore for things, but like don't intend on keeping it if it's unpublished.
You don't need it in your sock drawer.
You really don't.
Somebody, your girlfriend, or something, going to say, throw that out. And then you're like, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
Kind of like fishing. I like throwing them back.
Yeah, I like that. It'll still be there next time for you to catch. Shoot, I think with that, should we go ahead and wrap things up?
Yeah, I'll wrap it up. Thanks everybody for coming. And, thanks for giving us Danny for a couple of weeks. No, it's all you guys. You let us have them.
The whole reason I can be out here is thanks to your support.
That's
so thank
true.
you very, very much, everybody.
Yeah, and thanks for those of you that pitched into the Feed the Starving Paleontologist Fund.
Yeah, no, seriously, that makes a big deal, and we really appreciate it.
Down to the dregs tonight.
Yeah.
Just rice and beans. Unfortunately, I didn't bring any veggie burgers for.
That's okay. I'll survive somehow.
I'll be all right. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the other screen, and then we'll do a raid if I get enough connection. But thank you so much, everybody, and hopefully I'll stream again Thursday, Friday, something like that this week after I make it home to Oakland. But you take care, everybody.